All right, everybody, good morning, at least morning in the Pacific side of the world on the West Coast. And here with my weekly webinar, and we're going to talk some diet mentality versus knowledge of metabolism reality in this one. And I'm going to use a piece of research that I've used in a few of my books, actually. So I'm going to refer to that and see what that has to say. So just wait on people to get on board. Hopefully we'll have a good turnout. Hopefully people benefited from last week's webinar, having my client JP on here, and who lost over 100 pounds and has kept it off. I think those kind of transformations are inspirational to people, but only the long-term ones. So we're definitely going to talk a bit about that today as well. I'm going to tell you what the difference is between the diet mentality madness, even among the research, versus a sound knowledge of metabolism. And we're going to get into that as well. So just waiting for people to get on board. You'll want to hit your share button for this one, folks. I'm going to go back to using some research, and I'm going to tell you what research has to say, real research that you're not going to hear about in the fitness and diet industry. You're just not going to hear about this research, and that's on purpose. So especially in the fitness industry that likes to hawk supplements, especially in the diet industry that wants to use buzzwords and co-opt buzzwords, they're not going to tell you about the realities of certain research. They like to cherry pick their research, and they like to use words like, such and such a substance may do this and may do that. So that you'll buy into hope over experience, even though those exact things may not do any of those things. So talk a little bit about that as well. But I definitely want to get into the difference between the North American diet mentality madness versus a sound knowledge of metabolism, and how they take people on two different trajectories moving forward. So that's really, really important stuff. So I'll just wait another minute or so. Hopefully, like I said, folks, hit your share button, because you're going to want people to know about this. What does the research really have to say about diets and weight loss? And I'm going to get to that. Like I said, this is research that I have used in my own books that I'll mention along the way, and I'll mention on the back end as well. So some of you are even listening while driving. So all right, well, that's good. I guess you can do that. So without further ado, if you guys are good, I'm going to get right on into it. Lots of people joining. So good to see people from all over the world, even on a weekday. I'm still trying to nail down the best days and times to do these webinars, when people can make it, when they can't, those kind of things. But let's get on board. Okay, so let's talk about North American diet mentality madness, something I've been raging against for decades, versus a sound knowledge of metabolism and the two trajectories they take us on. So I'm going to reference some research that's in a couple of my books. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that up on the screen right now and invite you to follow along with me. And I'll just shrink my big fat fatty head here, and then you'll be able to follow along with me. So I appreciate the people being on board, even though it's the middle of the night where you live. Always good to have people on board. So as you can see, the headline here, diets don't work. Now here's the research right here. I'm going to highlight this. So if you want to do a screenshot or copy and paste, I'll just put that in the notes as well. So I'll just put that right here, and for you guys to see. So it'll be right up on the board. So there's the actual research that you'll be able to follow along. And what I did is what I usually do with the research. I leave the researchers writing in black or blue. My comments are in red, and as well as I go into the original research and I take out the fluff or the overly academic stuff, so you can follow along with the pertinent stuff. But as you can see what the main heading is here, I can't make it much more plain than that. Diets don't work. So let's talk about what that means, because everyone will nod their head in agreement with that statement. And then there'll be the same people who write me and ask me about keto, or ask me about Atkins, or ask me about this, or ask me about that. So there's the actual Will you lose weight and keep it off if you diet? No, probably not. UCLA researchers report in the April issue of the American Psychologist Journal, 2007 Journal of American Psychological Association. Can you guys all see my screen okay? You can follow along and read that? Hopefully you can. Just give me a thumbs up or whatever if you can. So that's the research, and I've used it in a couple of my books, a few of my books, and I'm going to get into that as well. So let me know you can see my notes, and we'll get on with it. So the researchers, and you see the quotes, I'll quote them as often as I can and then add my own 2 cents. But the researchers, you can only initially lose 5 to 10% of your weight on any number of diets, but then the weight comes back, said Tracy Mann, UCLA Associate Professor of Psychology and lead author of the study. Notice the field of research here is important to point out. Associate Professor of Psychology. What do I talk to you about in all of my books on metabolism, etc.? I talk about the psychology, the diet psychology, the diet mentality, and you're only going to get the straight scoop outside of the field of physiological research that the fitness and diet industry use. So that's an important heads up right there, is to expand your research base to find out the truth. So what did the author say, Tracy Mann, UCLA Associate Professor of Psychology? We found that the majority of people regained all their weight plus more. All right, I'll just pause for effect there. Sustained weight loss was only found in a small minority of participants, while complete weight regain was found in the majority. Complete weight regain was found in the majority. You want to share this, folks, because it gets better and better. Now, this is no surprise to me. It's reflective of the metabolic compensation system, something I've been writing about for years and years, something I've been telling you about to deaf ears for years and years. The people who think they believe in it, who actually will, again, abandon it as soon as there's a promise of weight loss and some new vogue trend out there, keto nonsense being the current one. So here's a quote from the study. Diets do not lead to sustained weight loss or health benefits for the majority of people. Let me blow that up for you there. So, all right. Diets do not lead to sustained weight loss or health benefits for the majority of people. You get a lot of people kidding themselves too. They're saying, oh, they want to be healthier. Well, there's nothing healthy about going no carbs. All right. So a lot of people are lying to themselves straight away, and I'll get to that as well. Mann and her co-authors conducted the most comprehensive and rigorous analysis of diet studies, analyzing 31 different long-term studies. Now, this was 2007, but it's still quite relevant. So important that you follow along. Now, what happens to people on diets in the long run, the researcher asked? Would they have been better off to not go on a diet at all? Well, they decided to dig up and analyze every study that followed people on diets for 2 to 5 years. Now, this is important. This is the long-term reality of the metabolic compensation system versus the short-term wishful thinking of the North American diet mentality madness. Here's their conclusion. We conclude that most people would have been better off not going on a diet at all. Their weight would be pretty much the same, and their bodies would not suffer the wear and tear of losing weight and gaining it all back. Now, people don't even consider that there is a wear and tear element from chronic dieting and weight regain, but there is, and it falls under the umbrella of what I termed metabolic damage, and you'll see my book on that. I'll just show that there. You'll see it at the bottom. That's the link to my book on metabolic damage and the dangers of dieting that I talked about. So hopefully you guys can see that. Now, so many wannabe gurus have argued that metabolic damage doesn't exist, but we see over and over again the researchers saying that it does. They just call it by a different name, and I'll get to that as well. So let me know you're digging this, folks. Let me know you're out there, and we'll get to that. So there's a link for my book, Metabolic Damage and the Dangers of Dieting. I'm sure this study is in there, but I wanted to get more to the point on what this study had to say. So we're right back at it now. People on diets tend to lose 5 to 10% of their starting weight in the first 6 months, the researchers found. However, at least 1 to 2/3 of people on diets regain more weight than they lost within 4 or 5 years. And the true number was probably significantly higher, they said. Now, let me backtrack here. I want to make a point. typically lose 10% of their starting weight in the first 6 months, researchers found. Well, doesn't this speak to what's going on in social media online? All these websites with before and after pictures that are going on, they're not covering people beyond that 6 month point. Only I do that with my long-term people that have taken weight off and kept it off. Most of these 12-week transformations and all this other nonsense, they don't cover people longer than a short-term period of time, and that appeals to the North American diet mentality. But there's a price to be paid for that, as we see here. 2/3 of people on diets regain more weight than they lost within 4 or 5 years, and the true number may be significantly higher, the researchers said. So again, beware of before and after pictures that are in reality before and during pictures, because these scenarios do not tell the whole story of the metabolic compensation system, because they just don't follow people long enough. What happens after the after picture? Is there another before picture coming after that? Well, the researcher says that there is. So although the findings reported give a bleak picture of the effectiveness of diets, there's reasons why the actual effective diets is even worse than reported, the researcher said. The research said that certain factors bias diet studies to make them appear more effective than they really are. Now, this is also important. What does that say? Well, what it's saying is, and I'll get to it, but this is the glorification of vogue trends. It's especially prominent in social media, where consumers just don't get it, but they think they do because they read an isolated study that's been cherry-picked to back up nonsense. Keto is a good example of that. When you do research on keto, you end up more on marketing sites than you do on actual research sites. So this is one of those things. But let's get back to the point. Certain factors bias diet studies to make them appear more effective than they really are. That's important. Now, here's why and how that happens. For one, many participants self-report their weight by phone or mail rather than having their weight measured on a scale by an impartial source. Of course, people are going to overrepresent the effectiveness of something. Also, the studies, and this is really important, the studies have very low follow-up rates. 8 of the studies had follow-up rates lower than 50%. And those who responded, those who responded may not have been representative of the entire group, since people who do gain back large amounts of weight are generally unlikely to follow up, to show up for follow-up tests, the researcher said. This is important to note because it shows that diet failure rates are even higher, way higher than what can even be recorded and followed up on. And yet, even still, what is recorded is resounding failure from the diet mentality. So hopefully you're sharing this, folks, because this stuff is gold, and it's actual research. Several studies indicate that dieting is actually a consistent predictor of future weight gain. Now, this is in many of my books. All right, so you can see that book behind me, The Anti-Diet Approach to Weight Loss and Weight Control. So I just blew that up for you. Several studies indicate that dieting is actually a consistent predictor of future weight gain. Boom. What do I tell people all the time? People are writing me while they even this morning, I got email questions about, raspberry ketones and ketone powders and meal replacements and everything reflective of the North American diet mentality that says, I want to lose weight now. Well, that is a bad place to be in. And I see this all the time, and I tell it to everyone all the time, and it still falls on deaf ears. Because if you can promise someone weight loss now, they'll be deaf to the fact that it's going to cause massive weight gain later. They'd just be deaf to that fact. So, and people don't protect themselves from nonsense. So several studies indicate that dieting is actually a consistent predictor of future weight gain. Boom, get that through your noggins. Said Janet Tomiyama, UCLA graduate student of psychology, co-author of the study. One study found that both men and women who participated in formal weight loss programs gained significantly more weight over a 2-year period than those who had not participated in a weight loss program, she said. So again, massive failure from diet mentality madness, or thinking that I'm going to go on a diet. Another study which examined a variety of lifestyle factors in the relationship to changes in weight in more than 19,000 healthy older men over a 4-year period. See, this is the important stuff. how long a period of time? Over a 4-year period, found that one of the best predictors of weight gain over the 4 years was that someone lost weight on a diet at some point during the years before the study started. Boom. All right. Again, more evidence that diets have damage and repercussions and consequences. One of the best predictors of weight gain over the 4 years was having lost weight on a diet at some point during the years before the study started. I've been telling people about metabolic damage and the dangers of dieting, consequences of that mentality for years and years. And what do? They run to their guru websites who say metabolic damage doesn't exist. Well, it actually does exist, and here's the proof. So, I just read that twice. Is this really what you want for yourself? Diet now, gain even more weight that made you unhappy, gain even more down the road. In several studies, people in control groups who did not diet were not that much worse off, and in many cases, they were better off than those who did diet, she said. If dieting doesn't work, then what does, the researchers ask? Well, let me tell you what does. Metabolism first. That's what works. All right. This is the cornerstone of my cycle diet approach. It's the cornerstone of everything I do with clients. And notice I've presented to you clients who have lost substantial weight and kept it off permanently. So notice how all the above, even in this research, all the above is about weight loss and weight gain. It's a weight first mindset that produces all the negative consequences noted above, even in the research. Now, why is that? Because you can't really study and quantify metabolism. It's a hard thing to quantify. And this leads back to one of my favorite Einstein quotes. Not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted actually counts. So that was very, very important as well. So folks, hopefully now you're hitting the share button, because I'm giving you gold here. I'm giving you pearls. So hopefully you're getting what I'm saying here. So a weight first mindset produces consequences more so than results. So it's like, getting paid now in order to be bankrupt later. And that's a huge consequence to pay. So to use another classic, one of my ableisms, what all this shows is that you force the body and it reacts. You coax the body and it responds. And how do you coax the body? You learn about how to optimize metabolism and train your metabolism. So the researchers ended up saying that eating in moderation is a good idea for everybody, and so is regular exercise, but regular exercise is not what they looked at in this study. Exercise may well be a key factor leading to sustained weight loss. Of course, anyone following me knows that. Studies consistently find that people who reported the most exercise also had the most weight loss. So what this is saying is also something I've been lecturing about for years and years. And let me put the researchers' words in Abel terms. Relative calorie deficits combined with ways to optimize metabolism are the only sure ways to sustain weight loss and lose weight the right way. Relative calorie deficits, healthy, unprocessed whole foods, and exercise, especially resistance training and well-timed refeeds in the correct metabolic environment. And no one talks about well-timed refeeds. They talk about cheat days. They talk about all these other things, but they don't talk about the metabolic context within which all that takes place. So here it is in bold. Relative calorie deficits combined with ways to optimize metabolism are the only sure ways to sustain weight loss. All right. So relative deficits, healthy whole foods, exercise, especially resistance training, and well-timed refeeds, all right, in the correct metabolic environment. Boom. That's the solution. Furthermore, this has absolutely nothing to do with supplements. All right. So all these people who think you're going to supplement your way to weight loss, or you have to have this and that fancy weight loss, it's not going to work. It's not going to help you any in terms of the final, getting there faster or getting there better has nothing to do with raspberry ketones, exogenous ketones, yucky poo-poo, stinky caca, fat burner of the month, or whatever other nonsense that your guru can conjure up. So this is what the research has to say. Diet studies of less than 2 years, listen to this, are too short to show whether dieters have regained the weight they lost. Now, where are you going to see, as I asked you earlier, where are you going to see this reality in all these online 12-week transformations or contest prep type of websites and the like that glorify short-term changes without ever discussing long-term reality. All right. And yet women especially flock to these websites and you go girl nonsense of someone who's going to pay a huge price for being on that website before and after. Now they're going to pay a huge price down the road. So now here's going on with the research. Even when you follow dieters 4 years, they're still regaining the weight. 4 years later, they're still putting on weight as a consequence of a diet. Why can't people understand that? I've been saying it for years. Because as I've said a million times, dieters and diet guru wannabes mistakenly focus on the weight and not on metabolism first. And what we see here are the crushing metabolic consequences of a previous diet, even 4 years later. So that's my link again to my book, Metabolic Damage and the Dangers of Dieting. Just put that up for you to look at once again. So yet these new, online gurus, they're going to fix your metabolism, right, by having you go on yet another diet. It's ridiculous. And I've had people write me. There's now online gurus who are co-opting my work and using my name, talking about metabolic damage or metabolic resets, and then bastardizing everything I've said by telling them 2 weeks keto and 2 weeks this and stuff that I would never say, day of fasting and all this other nonsense to reset your metabolism. So that's frustrating. And it's very, very important that people understand that. Now, I know on my webinars, I'm preaching to the choir because people aren't going to hear what they don't want to hear. So it's just important, but I put it out there. It's absolutely ridiculous to think you're going to fix your metabolism by going on another diet. It's not how the body works, and it's not how the metabolic compensation system rights itself and corrects itself. So back to the research, one study of dieting obese patients followed them for varying lengths of time. Among those who were followed fewer than 2 years, now this is interesting stuff, 23% gained back more weight than they had lost, while those who were followed for at least 2 years, 83% gained back more weight than they had lost, Mann said. And one study found that 50% of dieters, half the people who diet, weighed more than 11 pounds over their starting weight 5 years after the diet. So here we have what I've been saying, metabolic damage and the dangers of dieting. Oh, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Well, who's following these people for 2 and 3 years? Because what this research shows, and what I've been saying over and over again, is the longer you follow people after a diet, the more weight they're gaining. And then people end up writing me and they want a metabolic fix. Oh, can we fix my metabolism? I want to fix my metabolism. And I say, yeah, well, okay, I can fix your metabolism. It's going to take about 3 or 4 years. And then off they go to the next guru who will promise them something immediately. And then what do they measure their metabolic correction by? Weight loss. It's absolutely insane. And that's the North American diet mentality insanity, definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, deprivation dieting, just because now you call it a metabolic refix or a metabolic reset, it's still deprivation dieting. And what we see here is the longer you follow people, the more weight they've gained back. So less than 2 years, 25% gain the weight back or more. At 2 years, 83% gain the weight back and even more. And you keep studying longer, 50% gain back even more weight than if they ever started dieting at all. And that's something I hear over and over again from people, especially in the fitness industry and especially among ladies who compete. And that's why I won't train competitors anymore. So again, I ask you, is this what you want? When are you going to stop chasing rainbows and focus on metabolism first approach to sustainable weight control? I'm going to get to your comments and questions in a second. Trust me, this latest Vogue trend or contest prep guruitis website could care less what happens to you 2 or 3 years from now. And that's just the fact. They are all about using you in the short term to build up their online following with sleight of hand deception and suggestion that their clients' weight loss is permanent when it is anything but permanent. And it's actually most of these gurus who are responsible for their clients gaining more weight than they ever started when they started dieting with. And none of them will take responsibility. As soon as they start gaining weight back, which I predict as a consequence and a result of the metabolic compensation system just doing what it's supposed to do, then these gurus online, they just abandon these people. Oh, well, you're no longer doing what I say. You're no longer following the diet. You don't want it bad enough. And all this other nonsense that passes. And that's why I call it guruitis, because none of it shows an understanding of the metabolic compensation system. Now, the harder you diet, the more likely is that you're going to gain all that weight back plus more. Plus, if you've read my books, you gain a substantial amount of that new weight gain is body fat. It's not even lean tissue. So you're gaining even more fat than what you started with. So evidence suggests that repeatedly losing and gaining weight is linked to cardiovascular disease, stroke, diabetes, and altered immune function. This is exactly what I meant by, in my term, metabolic damage, that all these gurus who do contest prep say doesn't exist. Well, a good celebrity example of this was Luther Vandross, the R&B singer. He was a chronic yo-yo dieter. He suffered from diabetes and hypertension. It ran in his family, but his dieting didn't help. Then he had a stroke. Then he was bound to a wheelchair, and then he passed at the age of 54. So this is important stuff. No one wants to, la, 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 I can't hear you. I'm going to diet and get lean. Well, those are the consequences of what research has to say really goes on if you're not paying attention. And who's looking down the road? I like to liken metabolic compensation system and metabolism first. It's a lot like going to school to get a degree. You have to do what it's going to take now in order to get your degree 4 years from now. Well, working correctly with your metabolism works the same way. You can't focus on one course in academia right now and say, oh, I passed that course. That doesn't lead you to getting your degree. You have to do what it takes now to get your degree in 4 years. You have to do what it takes now to optimize your metabolism so you'll never have a weight problem again. That's the foundation behind my book, The Cycle Diet, and how we cycle diet. So again, there's more consequences to yo-yo dieting than just the embarrassment and shame of gaining all your weight back. There's health consequences as well. And again, my book, Metabolic Damage and the Dangers of Dieting, I go into all of this stuff, and then everyone wanted to pretend that it doesn't exist. And yet the research shows over and over again that it exists, and it exists in spades. So that's the link again to my book, Metabolic Damage and the Dangers of Dieting. So you got to pay attention to long-term reality over short-term quick fixes, over short-term I want. And let's get something else straight here as well. Contest prep dieting, especially for women, is just another form of yo-yo dieting glorified to look different. But it's still just yo-yo dieting nonetheless. Now, why am I saying especially for women? Well, I'm saying especially for women because I did the research in my course and book, The Empowered Woman Experience, and it shows that physiologically and biochemically and hormonally that women are meant to naturally have at least twice the body fat levels of men. So when they're dieting down and trying to be as lean as men and have abs and have a six-pack, then they're risking even more consequence and more damage, metabolic repercussions to having that level, okay, of distinction in terms of what they're trying to accomplish. So contest prep dieting for 90% of the women out there is still just yo-yo dieting glorified to look different than it actually is. And that's all in my book, Metabolic Damage and the Dangers of Dieting, because talk about that certain people have metabolic genetics. There's a lot of people, a lot of females who are just born with small hips and wider clavicles, and they will look better and they will have more resilience metabolically to a dieting scenario. Most women are not in that predicament yet. Who wants those results more? The women who aren't naturally predisposed to have them. So now you're creating this imbalance where people who are genetically predisposed to being heavier want to be leaner and leaner, not realizing the damage they're causing in doing so. And that's why I won't train competitors anymore. So Mann and Tomiyama, the researchers, recommend more research be conducted on the health effects of losing and gaining weight, noting that scientists, don't forget they're psychologists, do not fully understand how such weight cycling leads to adverse health effects. Well, dieting for a contest and then having an off season is weight cycling, no matter how you cut it. And there's tremendous health risks, health effects, and metabolic consequences for doing that. So while the researchers analyzed 31 dieting studies that were all long-term, they didn't evaluate specific diets. And really, why would they in something like this? Why would they evaluate specific diets? Because it's going to have the same outcome. So the benefits of dieting are too small and the potential harm too large for dieting to be recommended as a safe, effective treatment for obesity. Boom. Let me just bold that for you. The benefits of diet, this is the researchers, the benefits of dieting are too small and the potential for harm too large for dieting to be recommended as a safe, effective treatment for obesity. Another endorsement for my metabolism first diet strategy. And we asked about, this is the researchers again, we asked what evidence there is that dieting works in the long term and found that the evidence shows the opposite, something I've been saying for decades and something I've wrote books about. So the researchers asked, what evidence is there that dieting works for the long term, and found the evidence shows the opposite. It actually causes weight gain. And I talk about that in my book. You can see it behind me. The anti-diet approach to weight loss and weight control. I'll just put that up there for you to see that. Now, my book, The Anti-Diet Approach to Weight Loss and Weight Control, also discusses proper mindset, what I call diet psychology versus the North American diet mentality. So that's really, really important as well. So let me expound again about all the ladies who write me who make statements like, I just want my metabolism back and to be healthy and lean again. That's what appeals to these online wannabes who catch you in their net, because ladies mistakenly equate being healthy with being lean, and that's your ego. The reality is the weight you're gaining or have gained is a consequence of previous leanness and dieting. This study point showed it clearly. And this is your body gaining weight, is your body and your metabolism trying to right itself again. Yet these ladies refuse to accept this, and they'll fall for any idiot promise out there they can fix or reset your metabolism while you lose weight and lean out. It's a farce. You're just doing the same thing that caused the problem to begin with, and you're calling it a different name. And that's a tragedy, and that's just dumb. So that's something that ladies just don't seem to get. They keep going off about healthy and then saying healthy and lean as if they're the same thing, not realizing that their previous leanness is what set all this weight gain in motion, that this study clearly shows. Boom. I don't know how else to present it to you in terms of research findings that support what I've been saying for years. It's funny, though, all the times I was attacked about metabolic damage doesn't exist. And yet research shows over and over again that it actually does. I just created a phrase that encapsulates all the risks and all the things that are going on: metabolic, hormonal, biochemical, physiological, health, all these things, repercussions of previous diets. And people don't want to accept it, even though they'll nod in agreement with this and say, wow, this is really cool, I got to watch it. As soon as they have weight to lose, they'll fall for the next person who sends them a social media link to some other nonsense out there, and then they'll abandon common sense. So it's important. So especially for ladies out there, to equate health with leanness. All right, I just want my metabolism back and be healthy and lean again. Well, the healthy part is your body trying to right itself no matter what the weight is doing. And if you keep making weight the priority over metabolism, you're going to lose, and you're going to lose big. And I don't mean you're going to lose weight. I mean, you're going to lose the proposition that you're looking for. So the reality is the weight you've gained as a consequence of previous leanness and dieting, that's your body trying to right itself. And you have to listen and respect and honor your body and not try to refuse what it's trying to tell you. And ladies just continue to refuse and refute this and do the la, I can't hear you over and over again. And yet they'll fall for complete bozos out there, bozos who use my work, all right, and then go and do the opposite of what I'm saying actually works. Now, one of the questions I'll get when I do one of these rants is, well, isn't your cycle diet a diet? Well, no, it's not a diet. It's a diet strategy based on an understanding of the metabolic compensation system and how metabolism actually works. The cycle diet is about appropriately using underfeeds with overfeeds in order to optimize metabolism and train it to be a fat burning machine that stays that way in an optimized state. Diets don't do that because diets focus on weight. So I call it the cycle diet, but it's really the cycle diet lifestyle. And you can't have a fear of food and a fear of weight if you're going to live that lifestyle. So here's just a picture of the cover jacket of my book, The Anti-Diet Approach. And then one of the other ones I think where I've used this study is my book, Understanding Metabolism. You can see the jacket there, The Truth About Counting Calories, Sustainable Weight Loss, and Metabolic Damage. The Metabolic Damage one I don't have a cover for because it's only online download, but you can I posted the link earlier. And then my book, Beyond Metabolism, How Your Brain, Biology, and the Environment Create and Perpetuate Weight Issues and What You Can Do About It. What you can do about it is stop accepting this weight first, metabolism second, and stop just nodding your head in agreement with these things and actually start abiding in them. So that's one of the most important things that you can do. So very, very important stuff. So I'm just going to hide that, get rid of that. And then I'm going to put my big fat head on the screen and I'm going to look at your comments. Teresa's just saying, yes, 100%. I hope that means you get it. And I hope that means you'll spread the word. And by all means, folks, hit share on this because I beat my head against my desk every day with the letters I get for people who say, well, no, I do know your stuff. But what about this? Well, that's a diet. If you know my stuff, then you should understand this. So Tracy's just saying my book, Zen Fitness and Tao Health. You can find that on Amazon and my website as well. That's a little bit more of a psychological approach to understanding working with your body instead of working on your body and all the ramifications of a proper mindset, a diet psychology mindset. So that's important as well. And then Metabolic Damage, Cycle Diet, and Zen Fitness, some of Tracy's favorite reads. Glad to see that. So Brett is just saying it's a long-term investment for sure, but this way creates a self-sustaining system that'll keep the progress. And it's not just keeping the progress, Brett, which is a good point, but you stop looking at everything as progress or lack of progress, or it just becomes the lifestyle, but it's a lifestyle of enjoyment. One of the things I posted yesterday on Facebook, post from my book about eating disorders and eating issues, which says that the number, one of the key signs mentally of having eating and food issues is joylessness. There's no joy associated with the diet, and the diet is reflective of the mindset. Whereas the cycle diet's the opposite. It's about joy and anticipation and excitement of the refeeds and the cheat days and no fear of food. So you stop looking at everything as progress or lack of progress. It just is what it is. And it's a lifestyle that you keep on living. Very, very important stuff. So important to know that stuff. So Ange is just saying that she has tears because that was her for so long. So I think a lot of ladies, here's the difference though. So many will identify with what I'm saying, but they won't change anything about what I'm saying. And that's the frustrating part for me. They'll acknowledge and they'll say, I get it, but they won't change it. They'll still go out and do everything that damages them and then wonder why they're damaged. And that just makes no sense to me. So Dusty, I love that name. Just saying, one of your best videos. This is what people need to hear, but we got to get it out to them, Dusty. As here's the thing, I try to appeal to a more intelligent sect, and as such, I have less followers, a lot less followers. If I was to jump on a keto wagon or whatever vogue trend is out there, as I've said a million times, I could be easily selling supplements because my celebrity status in the industry alone would allow me to sell whatever, is out there right now and call it a wonder supplement and make a lot of money. So the problem is getting the word out there. Like you said, people need to hear it, but a lot of people, one, won't listen to it. And two, we got to, it's hard to penetrate when 100,000 people are following some keto idiot out there who's learned how to market and get industry followers. And like I said, there's plenty of people who are co-opting my work, using my words, and then doing everything I'm against while using my name to do it. So it's really hard. So by all means, Dusty, hopefully you're sharing this and you'll get other people to do so as well. So, and this is just one study. If you've read my books, there's way more of them as well. So Marie's just saying, I wish I would have known this a few years ago. My trainer had me, oh, don't get me started on trainers who think they know. My trainer had me go on the ideal protein diet to lose weight for a show. Needless to say, I'm paying the price now. Everything you are saying is true. Well, that's why I'm doing it, Marie, because I see this over and over again, year in, year out. And you know why? Because 5 or 6 years later, you've got a whole new base, demographic base, who are going to go through all the same things. The other ones have moved on. They're no longer on the merry-go-round or the roller coaster. They've chosen to get off. They've gained so much weight. They stop listening to people, and they just get out of the fitness and diet industry. But every 4 or 5 year cycle, there's another gazillion who replace them and who buy into all the crap and all the Vogue trends and end up paying for it dearly. And then, they get out of it in 3 or 4 years because they've gained more weight than they actually were when they even started. And then there's a whole new population to replace them. So that's very, 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 very disappointing, but that's the truth. Andrew's just saying that was me. That asked. That's great info. So good. I see what you're referring to earlier, Andrew. Yeah, you wrote me earlier about a few supplements, and I think you mentioned meal replacement bars and things like that. That's the diet mentality madness. There's no such thing as a meal replacement except for a meal, except for one meal subbing for another. Bars and shakes are junk food, and it's not engineered food. It's processed food, just again, under a different name. So we have to watch that we are supporting metabolism and then optimizing metabolism. And to lose weight up front because you're finally sick and tired of being sick and tired is the surest way to never lose weight forever and keep it off. So that's very, very important as well. So hopefully everyone's getting in there. I'm just seeing if there's anything else. Not a bad turnout for the middle of a work day. So let me see. Andrea is just saying one of the only coaches in the industry that understands metabolism and preaches the truth. This man deserves the most followers out of anyone. Well, I'm not sure of that. I actually got a pretty profound hate mail earlier in the week because someone didn't like one of my answers to their questions. So telling me what a bad attitude I have. And all this other kind of stuff. So you'll get some blowback on that one, Andrea, but I'm not here to be in a popularity contest, but I wish I could get the message out. That's the sad part. 4 decades of experience. I could have been in and out of this industry easily by now, just by selling supplements. So very important. Adrienne is just saying, I've been following your cycle diet for over a year. Took a little while to get the portions right. But that's a good point, Adrienne, because that means you're listening to your biofeedback instead of an outside-in calorie approach. So that's good. And get into super comp. But once you do, everything falls into place and it feels like freedom. And it's so simple. Yep, we don't do macros. We don't count calories. We do portion sizes and then work from there based on hunger. So that's really, really important stuff. So yeah, that's good to know. And congratulations, Adrian. Now, a lot of people don't get there in terms of getting it as a lifestyle of supporting metabolism. So really, really important. And then Tom is just saying, I almost missed this, Tom. So can you do the cycle diet without working out? If you have problems with your lower extremities, you only train upper body. But then again, will your body not go out of whack? Stronger upper body, underdeveloped legs. Well, that's more cosmetic than it is physiological. And that's so you got 2 questions there, really, because you're saying you do train, but just your upper body. But the cycle diet, I wouldn't say is for people who aren't working out, because the workouts help optimize metabolism, as I said earlier in the lecture. So that's important stuff. So that's important. But Tracy's just saying the big wigs with the extremes only have one way. I appreciate your bio-individual approach. Anything extreme plays with my head and puts me in a space of can't. It's too distressful over food. No more. So, and then Alba's just saying change is hard. It takes commitment to yourself and patience. And that's Alba's a client of mine, folks, and she's one of my transition before and after people that's been permanent. But the reason is, over time of coaching her, got her to abandon the diet mentality madness and adopt the support the metabolism. Don't worry about the weight scale, all this and that. And one of her transformations, also a very, very dramatic one as well. So very, very important. So Shannon's just asking, I missed the beginning of the video, so maybe you talked about it already. If you can go, if I can go back and listen, which you certainly can. Was wondering if you can talk a bit about biofeedback, that the signals metabolism is heading the right way. Things like tolerable hunger kick into gear. You have a hunger that's tolerable, that's not dramatic, but you're still sleeping well, performing well, concentrating well, all these kind of things. Digestion is good. You're able to eat a lot on refeeds without getting a whole lot of stomach distress and things like that. Almost in the beginning, you're almost surprised by how much you can eat on a refeed because it's more than you thought you could. Those kind of things. The metabolism's heading the right way. Notice none of the things I'm saying has anything to do with weight. It's not about stepping on the scale and this happened and that happened. So it's about reading biofeedback in a certain way. On a refeed, you get a little more thermogenic. You're warmer. Maybe you're even sweating at night. Those kind of things. But things that optimize metabolism also tend to optimize health. So quality and quantity of sleep. Like I said, hunger and appetite, that are good things. It's amazing the diet mentality tries to keep telling people that hunger is some foreign element that needs to be, combated. Well, actually hunger is a good thing. Hunger is a signal that you're leaning out and you're losing weight. That's why your body builds up a resistance to it. It's just a matter of degree of hunger. So that's really, really important as well. Shannon is just saying that her husband hit her scale. Well, you should pull it out, Shannon, and take a sledgehammer to it. That's an exercise I've had many of my clients do in the past. So Ferris said he missed most of the broadcast. That's okay, Ferris. You can go back and, in a couple hours, it'll be there for you to see as well. So Michelle's just saying she loves food. And that's the approach to take. This North American diet mentality madness, to fear food and then feel guilt and shame over it. Again, how we look at our bodies is a reflection of how we see the world. So, and one can cause the other. So anything that's negative in that regard is something you need to abandon. But most people don't seem to understand that stuff. So that's unfortunate. So anyway, so I listed you a bunch of my books: Metabolic Damage and the Dangers of Dieting, the Anti-Diet Approach that you see behind me, Beyond Metabolism, my Cycle Diet, which is also an online course that gets into the whole thing that you were asking about, Shannon, about optimizing metabolism. What is supercompensation mode? How do you know you're in it? Should you be deep in it? Should you just be flirting with it? What are those signs? All those kind of things. I recommend the online course for that, and you can find that at thecycle.diet, and that's just thecycle.diet. So I can put that on there as well. So I'll just put that in there for you guys. It's all one word, the cycle diet. So I'll put that up there. So that's the online course for people who don't know who I am or haven't come across my work before. But like I said, that research that I just listed, that was in, I'll just bring it back up here for momentarily and just shrink my big fat noggin again. So yeah, that research, I'll just bring it up way up here, is right there if you want to see it. Okay, how diets don't work. So that's the research, and you can see it also, if you just go back and review, and you can just copy that link, all right, and paste it. So that's really, really important also. So Ferris is just saying how much he loved my book, Beyond Metabolism. Great. Always happy to hear that. So very, very important stuff. So that's it for me, folks. Almost an hour. So that's my energy level and most people's attention span. So that works out pretty good. So if you want to send me any ideas for future broadcasts, webinars, I don't have any problem with that. But familiarize yourself with my work, because I've basically covered just about everything that exists in this industry. So, yeah. So having said that, that's the difference between North American diet mentality versus the science and knowledge and understanding of metabolism. Long-term emphasis, long-term concerns over short-term promises and short-term, progress. I use that word loosely. That generates long-term consequences. So hopefully people get that, and hopefully people understand that. I'll see you all next time, and hopefully you benefited from that. Hit your share buttons, folks, when I come live. That's the only way, like Dusty said, to get it out there, get the messages out there. But I'll see you all next time. Thanks for being there.